One-sided weakness or paralysis is a common symptom after a stroke. Let's talk about why this happens and what you can do about it. Up to 80% of stroke survivors experience one-sided weakness or paralysis, according to a 2009 systematic review published in The Lancet Neurology. But why does this happen after a stroke? Let's take a quick peek into the anatomy to understand what's actually going on. So when somebody has a stroke, this means that there is interrupted blood flow to an area of the brain. And that means that that area of the brain is starved of oxygen. This can happen a couple of different ways, including by a blood clot or perhaps a brain bleed. But either way that it happens, when that area of the brain is damaged, those cells either become damaged or they die. And if the areas of the brain that control movement have been damaged, you will see resulting trouble with movement after that stroke. But I think it's really important to note here, it's not an arm thing, it is a brain thing. I think there's a misconception that, oh, it's just muscle weakness that's happening after stroke. And that may be true, but it's because there is essentially a communication problem. It's that the brain cannot really communicate with the spinal cord or with the nerves that are going to those muscles. Think of getting on a phone call and you're going through a dead zone. Either the call becomes really hard to understand or perhaps the call drops completely. And it's sort of the same thing that's happening between your brain and your muscles. This is why we focus so much on using the principles of neuroplasticity when we talk about rebuilding muscle strength and endurance and movement, coordination, all of those things. We have to think about it from that neuroplastic perspective versus just purely movement in isolation. We have to think about rebuilding the brain-body connection. How can you start rebuilding those brain-body connections to improve one-sided weakness? Well, I think it's important to note, a 2018 study found that 75% of stroke survivors and caregivers found that traditional therapy alone was not enough to work on this issue. And I think that that is very true. If you are lucky enough to have traditional therapy, you may only be getting, say, home health or outpatient therapy maybe twice a week for an hour. If you're only working on your therapy or on your exercises during that time period alone, you are not going to see the progress that you probably want to see. In order to really see progress with that one-sided weakness happen, you need to be engaging in rehab exercises and activities every single day. And this comes back to one of the main principles of neuroplasticity, which is repetition, repetition, repetition. We have to have hundreds and thousands of repetitions for our brain to make those meaningful brain-body connections. However, this doesn't mean that you have to go out and run a marathon every day or work on your rehab exercises from dawn until dusk. You can find some really creative ways to work on getting those repetitions in every single day with just everyday activities. Let me give you a few examples. When you're going into and out of a room, try turning on or off the light switch with your affected side. You may notice progress over time with consistent practice, where it becomes either easier to lift up your arm, or perhaps you even start getting some more dexterity back in your fingers. When you are going into a room, try opening and shutting the door with your affected hand. This is going to be a little bit easier if you have a long, slender door handle versus a knob, but you can still try to practice. When you're in the bathroom, try turning your faucets on with your affected side. Hold a coffee cup with your affected hand and practice bringing it to your mouth. Although I will say, if you still have quite a bit of trouble with this, don't put hot liquid in the cup, just in case. Try holding a broom with both of your hands and practice sweeping, either standing up if you're safe enough to do so, or sitting down. Try making yourself a sandwich, whether you try spreading something on like peanut butter or mayonnaise, or perhaps you just pick up deli meat and lettuce to put on your sandwich. Now keep in mind, I'm not recommending these things if you're like trying to get out of the house very quickly, but rather making these everyday activities a part of your home rehab. Recognize that yes, it is going to take you quite a bit longer to practice these things with your affected side. But the more that you practice, the more that you engage in those activities, you're likely going to see more progress happen over time. In addition to all of these everyday activities that you should be including in your home rehab routine, it's really important to have a structured exercise routine as well. And I've tried to make this a little bit easier for you all. I have created a new playlist called Get Your Arm Moving. And it starts with videos that you can do if you have no movement at all. And the videos work up to if you have some some movement in your affected arm. So you can go through, look and kind of see maybe where you're at in that spectrum and find a good starting place for you. Now, of course, I always recommend talking with your doctor or therapist to make sure any new exercises are right for you and the amount of those exercises that you should be doing for your specific situation. But I will say repetition is key. So the more that you are able to do exercises, the better. And including them in a daily part of your routine is very important. Just remember, do not push through pain or discomfort, and please be kind to yourself. Start where you are and try not to overdo it. Stroke recovery is indeed a marathon and not a sprint. All right, everyone, that's it for today. Leave me a comment and let me know, what did you find most helpful for your one-sided weakness after your stroke? And as always, if you found this video helpful, please make sure to leave it a like. And if you're new here or haven't already, subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get notifications for when I post new videos. Post-Stroke is a nonprofit, and you can help us keep our content free, either by giving us a super thanks by clicking in the YouTube bar below, by giving us a one-time donation via PayPal, or by becoming a Patreon member, where in exchange for a monthly donation, you get access to cool perks like social media shoutouts, behind-the-scenes footage, and even YouTube shoutouts, of which I have some today. A huge thank you to all of our patrons, and especially Heather G and Modus Nova in our Empowerer tier. We can't do what we do without you all. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.